This is the Real Footy Podcast. Coming up, the finals are upon us, and that means selection dilemmas, but none like the All-Australian team that was named last week, always with controversy. Former West Coast player Mitch Brown becomes a groundbreaker by coming out and publicly announcing his bisexuality. All that and more right after this.
Still waiting for someone, anybody. Miller pulled it out of there. Dawson takes the mark. Dawson takes the mark. And in the city of churches, Adelaide are now waiting for September.
After I saw a video when you're talking about the recent homophobic slur in the AFL and you know the reactions that came with that, and my text message said, "Hey Sam, I played in the AFL for 10 years for the West Coast Eagles, and I'm a bisexual man," and that's all it said.
That's a really big thing to say.
Yeah.
Not only Gold Coast haven't played in the final, this man has never played in the final, despite his time at Collingwood.
2 minutes to the boundary.
So here he is, and in their 15th year, Gold Coast go into the finals for the very first time.
Hello and welcome. My name is Michael Gleeson, and joining me today are Jake Noel and, coming off the bench, Marc McGowan. Welcome to you both.
Glees, mate.
Thanks, Glees. I have very, very big shoes to fill, but I'll just find my niche here.
Well, the niche is pretty easy in this one because we go straight into the finals, and we kick off Thursday night with Collingwood Adelaide, and it feels like the exposed recent form would favour Adelaide. The longer form between these two teams would say Collingwood. In fact, they won about 10 in a row, or didn't lose for 10. There was a draw and then 9 wins, but Collingwood's recent form coming into the finals beyond that Adelaide game is also patchy.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think Adelaide's form at the end of the year was that good either.
Agreed.
So I think it's a really intriguing game. And these teams, it's interesting, and I'm not looking at the betting for the premiership, but I would say that they're both behind Brisbane and Geelong. And the winner of the Brisbane-Geelong game we'll get to, but I think that'll be the clear flag favourite. And this game, though, Adelaide have a somewhat more settled side, but Rankin is a huge loss. Collingwood, you've written about Gleeson, about Bobby Hill as a potential in. I don't think that'll.
No,
I think that's a week off. That's probably a week away from that sort of bearing in mind that he hasn't put together. I think he's just put together 2 training sessions consecutively. The general pattern of these things, and obviously we're not conditioning people, is you probably need 4 or 5 sessions.
Yeah, you probably
consecutively to be able to play.
You probably do, Mark, but he's a small forward. The endurance isn't as big a part of the game as if he was playing in the midfield. He's an impact player. He could be sub or be planned to be subbed out. I think that in a team that the most recent game, and Collingwood's issues in front of goal have been they've been getting volume of inside 50s without converting them. Their accuracy has been poor, but also so in that most recent Adelaide game, they had 71 inside 50s, I think it was, to 34 or 37. And
that was misleading, though.
It was where the game was played more than actual punishing entries.
Well, also it was a wet ball game after, a quarter and a half. Yeah, so there was a lot of repeat entries where Collingwood was smacking it back in, the Crows were digging it back out and it coming back and forth, and a lot of bombs, hell of a lot of bomb entries. Look, it's an intriguing game, Mark. I mean, I don't know. I don't have particularly strong views on it. I would say I'll probably tip Adelaide. If it was in Melbourne, I'd probably tip Collingwood. But I think it's going to be tight. I don't see a blowout here. I think it'll be a tight game. I think it'll be relatively low scoring.
I think that's a fair read of it. I think if you look at that potency, they definitely can't give up that many inside 50s again. No. And I think they know that internally. But if I look at the potency at either end, even without Rankin, the Thilthorpes, the Fogartys, there's guys there that can really put on a score. And I don't have that same confidence with Collingwood. So I'd even be okay with them not winning the inside 50s. They just can't have as big of a gap as they had last time.
No, but that's sort of part of the argument for why you bring in Hill. So for me, the potency is true. Like the tall forwards are the real for Adelaide are the real clincher, but they lost the midfield so decisively last game, and the midfield is normally where games are won. And if Collingwood De Goey starts to play, his form's been improving game on game since he's come back.
I thought, that wasn't a great performance by Collingwood in the last game against Melbourne, but the last games are funny games. There's a lot of, like as per look at what happened to Gold Coast, but De Goey's performance in that game was the biggest positive for Collingwood in the last part of the season because he played he was close to their best player. If he produces like that with Nick Dacos, they'll win this game.
My concern on the Bobby Hill side of things when you're weighing up that risk is, you could sub him out. But let's say someone has an injury in the first couple of minutes, which we've seen with Collingwood recently. Suddenly, he's got to play a whole game. But then on the flip side, this is a Norm Smith medalist. This is a guy who can perform on the biggest stage. He can win you matches in finals. And we know Adelaide doesn't have that with Rankin. So it's a fascinating discussion, but I think you're right that it's probably more of a discussion in a week's time.
I think if they only had the one game, if they were playing an elimination final, I think he might be the sub. I think that what I think will happen is I think he will play in one of the later finals. If they win, then I think he'll play in the prelim. But we'll see. He has to consistently train. That's all that has to happen.
I'm not as persuaded by if it was at the MCG, Collingwood wins at Adelaide Oval. Collingwood's record at Adelaide Oval is particularly good, notwithstanding the recent loss. So I don't think that's as decisive as personnel.
It's a couple of goals.
Probably.
In tight games.
Rankin, what do you think will happen there? The fact that there are two elements to it. What does it actually what actually happens on the ground and in the stands? What reception does Collingwood get for being the team that called him out? We're talking about fan behaviour, which is never.
I think it'll be hostile. It'll be hostile anyway, though.
Yeah,
but I think it'll be hostile. But I think there'll also be a kind of something a bit circumspect around we'll get to Mitch Brown soon, but I do think this whole environment in the AFL is changing before our eyes. It's since Jeremy Finlayson, it's just accelerated, and even among the Adelaide crowd, and where there'll be a parochial resentment of the fact that they lost Rankin, there'll still be people thinking, but he did the wrong thing.
Yeah,
I don't think it'll be all one thing.
We will come back to that. So more specifically, it looks like the players. I don't think Rochelle will get up in time for this game.
Yeah, just one maybe. I don't know if you heard anything, Mark or Gleeson, but McCreary?
Yeah, there's still got to be a... Did he get his foot... They said stomped on initially. Yeah. For me, that'd have to be... To miss, it'd be broken, or some sort of a broken toe or something like that. He did get back on the ground in that game and ran away from Christian Salem in one critical contest.
He is the sort of player that could make a huge difference because if you don't have any quick players, pace and aggression in
especially
games.
Without Hill.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The Crows, McElhaney, Pedler is available. Neither of them are you don't have a like for like across the competition very easily for Rankin, but they certainly don't have one. Rochelle would be their closest, but I don't think he comes in just for this week. I think he's more likely second week. What do you think they do in a structural sense?
Oh, geez, it's the $1 million question. As you said, there's just not a like for like with Rochelle looking unlikely. Pedler is, he's tough. He started more as a midfielder and he's sort of morphed into more of a half-forward type now, but he's certainly not picking up the slack of Rankin. You'd imagine the coaches talk to him about just play to your strengths. Don't try to be Isaac Rankin because it's just not possible. But he seems logical to come in and fill that role, but just not that role, if that makes sense.
I think one subtlety here that may happen is that Quainer tends to play on Rankin, and I would guess that he might be a bit more aggressive in rebounding. That it just changes how you see ground balls. If Collingwood can't get the ball to ground, then they won't win this game because and Riley Thilthorpe. I mean, I don't think there's hardly a defender in the game that can stop him. I think he's outside of Jeremy Cameron, who's really a flanker, as a genuine big forward. He's been the best this year, in my view, including Sam Darcy.
I reckon Alex Pearce would be as close as anyone. I reckon
Alex Pearce
got the size and strength,
and the bulk. Yeah,
and he did a phenomenal job on Darcy.
Yeah,
Darcy doesn't have the body strength. He's got the height, but he doesn't. It's easier to push him off the ball. This guy, you can't move.
Taylor and Andrews have got the guile, but not necessarily the strength and height.
But they asked him at the Howie asked him at the All Australian Awards night, what do you weigh in at? And he said, because he built up a lot in a couple of years ago, and he said 108, 110.
They actually asked him his weight.
Yeah,
That's a
and
bit taboo.
half the AFL went,
Well, he made a joke.
no,
Mark Howard made a joke of that, saying, "Well, we're not supposed to ask this, but what are you?" And he went,
what do you
he
weigh?
went 108, 110.
108, that's big.
110. He said 108 to 110, and then the next few questions said, "Well, as someone who's 110, because when you say 108 to 110, you're 110, aren't you?"
Yeah. And Mark Howard's probably sitting there thinking, that's nearly two of me.
Yeah. But still, Frampton probably plays on him.
Yeah.
And more probably.
Well, who did they bring in for Howe, do you think? Parker?
Parker, yeah. They're going to have
small.
to. So Braden Maynard's going to have to play on probably.
Walker?
No, I would
Or
say
maybe on
Fogarty. Yeah, and Darcy Fogarty.
I think he can fill that role.
He can, yeah. Maynard can do that. But if Collingwood get it to ground, I think they'll win this game. If they can't get it to ground, of course they won't.
Well, Tex and Fogarty aren't great. Oh, Fogarty's got better.
I think Fogarty's good on the ground for a big.
He's
big
got better.
body.
He started out very tram track, but he's more nimble than that now.
And don't forget Ben Keys, because I think he's continually underestimated as a player. Like if you look at his output each week, it's very good.
Has anyone, funny you bring up his name, because I just thinking about the Crows and Mark Keane in the All Australian squad. I mean, has any club had more success in recent times turning other clubs' off-casts into either stars or really good players? Like Ben Keys, Keane, even Mitch Hinge.
Keane, I'm not sure was an off-cast so much as an evacuee. he left to go back home.
That's fair enough.
Collingwood tried to get him back.
Yeah.
So I think it was a coup by the Crows to get.
Did
a
they
guy
think
for
he was
nothing.
All Australian?
No.
Like he's become a super player now.
Yeah. I know that at Collingwood that was in the Buckley era. They were absolutely gutted, pissed off that he went.
Well,
back.
he rang them back to say, "I'm coming back. Can I come back?" And they were like, "Mate, you've burnt that bridge," because he waited until after he said he was coming back. They kept the position open, kept the list spot open they could have used, and then he walked again. So that's why they were so angry with him.
He's a fascinating player because he's so good at intercepting and not great at playing on someone. Like he doesn't really
types like that in the AFL.
But he is almost the extreme of it because I don't think his body. Amani kicked most of his 9 goals on him. Like he doesn't really position himself.
He's very good at throwing the ball too.
We'll see.
Well,
see.
there was a Gold Coast game earlier as well.
This will be
square.
This game. I think the Cats Lions will be the pick of the games, and the stakes are the highest. I think the Crows Collingwood game will be the most TV ringside sort of feel. It'll have the most,
Is that sort of the stuff around the edges that everyone's fascinated to see how it plays out?
I reckon.
Yeah. There's also so the Brisbane Geelong game is really fascinating too for completely different preparations to it. The soft entry for Geelong with who they've had to play or who they've played, and no injuries. Neil's been out, Berry's been out. They've Hipwood's out. They're getting into the top 4. They were at risk of going anywhere into that after that Hawthorn game in the last round. So it'll be intriguing to see what preparation. Clearly, you would prefer to have Geelong's. If the biggest query is, it might be a bit too easy on you. You should have gone harder. But how do you see? Where is it going to? Is it going to be
the game? This
midfield?
Game, this game to me will be the key. The crucial thing will be whether Geelong can get the ball on the outside to Max Holmes and Bailey Smith, and Brisbane have a better midfield. But those two guys, they're so elite as transition players. So if they can get it on the outside to those guys, Geelong can win the game, and Geelong have the better forward line. But Brisbane have more talent overall. So you just look at the midfield and you go, well, if Brisbane get hold of them in the midfield, this is going to be very hard. And Geelong are going to have to, there's a huge responsibility for Tom Atkins to just negate, to just defend the centre square. You could see, because Brisbane's talent in there, they're going to bring in Lachie Neale. I assume they get Berry.
I assume so, yeah.
So, on paper.
So does Dunkley go to Who would you put him to? Does he go to does he go to Holmes or?
Well, I don't think he's really got the right. There's really
He's
a
not
matchup
really a
for him.
matchup.
No.
mate,
He's
Wade.
not perfect for those two because that's
No.
what I instantly think of. When you look at that midfield, they've got lots of great names, the Lions, but they probably don't have the dynamism of your Max Holmes and your Bailey Smiths who burst out of the square. Like they'll win a lot of contests. But that's probably, like you said, getting him on the outside and bursting from stoppages. Yeah. Dunkley isn't perfect for those two, but if he can keep the game in close, maybe he can get away with one of those two.
Yeah, they've got more the power. I mean, sure, if Dangerfield goes in there, he's the right sort of guy with the strength around the ball with him.
Geelong's big hope would be their defence smothering Brisbane's aerial. Brisbane's aerial game is not strong.
Yeah.
They're not going to have Hipwood, who's not a great sort of pack marking type anyway, but he is 6'8" or something. And
a lot of responsibility.
On a young player who's a second-year player.
And
Logan Morris. That's
the thing we've been wondering. We wondered at the start of the year what the impact of losing Joe would be, and they've covered it most of the year. But you get to the finals, and then you lose Hipwood, and you're looking at a Logan Morris and thinking, look, he's a great young talent, but he's still just 20, and he's got to shoulder the whole lot. Do they bring in, Sam Day?
Yeah. And having said that, though, again, if the ball gets to ground with even numbers in Brisbane's front half, those small forwards are absolute dynamite with Bailey, Cameron, who seems to be finding form again, and obviously Cam Rayner. Cam Rayner, he's not everyone's cup of tea, but he's really talented.
When
player.
he's
just
on,
a match winner.
outstanding.
He like that game the other week, he didn't touch the ball at all against Hawthorn in the first quarter. No, 0 touches, but then became a really important player because I know that can happen on a half-forward flank, but he probably doesn't rotate through the middle enough for me. But I like that idea of that power out of the middle. But I think that he's certainly the player that you go, could be.
So the player I'm watching most is probably Max Holmes. I think back to that prelim, which was an epic game. I thought it was the best game of the finals last year. And if Max Holmes didn't do the hamstring, I think Geelong win the premiership.
See, the one for me, you say one player you highlight. For me, it's Hugh McCluggage. He has just been unbelievable this season. I mean, he's been unbelievable for 4 or 5 years now, but he is probably the point of difference in that midfield. He's got just a little bit of a different skill set, beautiful kick, and he never plays a bad game. Never plays a bad game.
Doesn't make bad decisions.
No.
Well, this year, he's been Brisbane's best player. And, I did my top 30 and I had him in the top 10. And I think he well and truly belongs
Justified.
there.
Yeah, the player I think that can turn the whole thing. We can talk all that we like about this. Jeremy Cameron is sitting up there and he's going to have, it would be interesting to see how he goes. With Harris Andrews, I doubt they play whether Harris goes to him, or just sits outside. But
that's a really interesting decision for Fagan, isn't it? Do you play Harris Andrews, who doesn't, it's become a bit like Scarlett and Dustin Fletcher that you're the trump card player, but you don't play on.
Like Tom Stewart at the other end, and Cameron likes to get up the ground and he likes to work his player over and run and push back. But Harris tends to sit back, and they've got Neil there, so. I'll be fascinated by that because I think Jeremy Cameron, the numbers speak for themselves. So anyway, move on. Giants and Hawks, thoughts?
Yeah, well, the winner of this game will fancy themselves because they'll get the loser of the Adelaide-Collingwood game.
Yeah.
And if it's Collingwood, then Hawthorn win. They get another game in Melbourne, and the Giants will fancy themselves against Collingwood, and they'll fancy themselves against the Crows. So it's a game that there's a lot on it because the team that wins it will really feel like they can go places. But Hawthorn have never won at the Showgrounds,
right?
Which is an interesting stat.
I'd much rather play the Giants than, say, the Dockers if I was the Hawks. I don't know how you guys feel, but I just feel the Giants have been quite unpredictable this year. And I even go back to that performance against the Dogs at Marvel on a Thursday night. Yes, okay, it seems like you can just toss it out, but good teams don't get smashed like that, I don't think. I thought that was a really, really poor performance, and I just don't trust the Giants like I do some other clubs.
Yeah, Fremantle, Brisbane, though, I looked at that and thought, you can't trust Fremantle.
No, you probably can't, but I probably rate the Dockers a bit higher, I think, than
because I don't know, some of the Giants' best footy is great, but you can't let them play it on their terms. And when they're not played on their terms, they can look ordinary.
The Giants' midfield concerns me. It used to be this absolute strength, and that was what they were all about, and they just don't have that depth now behind. Obviously, they've got two guns at the top, Tom Green, Finn Callaghan, obviously. But
I
I feel like Josh Kelly's going to be a massive
But if you go
inclusion.
head-to-head on those two, you go, okay, well, if it is Green head-to-head with Newcombe, then you think, well, who else, if they sort of nullify one another, who else stands up there for Hawthorn? Who's the next mid that's really going to take and be able to go against Callaghan or Kelly? I just don't see them having that power runner. Well, Warple's a good, B grader inside, but he's not going to go with. Weddle would be good. Yeah, he would be, or will be.
And I would say that Hawthorn, they need those. They're going to need. They've been going. You've written about the four talls.
Yeah,
looks like that'll go again.
Yeah,
and they're just going to have to. If the ball, I'm not sure the Giants is the best side for that setup because they've got very good tall backs.
They're one club that actually can
deal with it. Yeah. So I'm not sure it's the best. It's the best.
I
setup.
think you'd still go with it. I mean, they've got good smalls too, Hawthorn. They still have three. They've got up to 9 forwards that rotate through there. But it was just that point. We discussed previously about how people have been asking the question: are they going to go with 4 talls? No one's doing it. And I spoke with Jack Gunston last week for a piece that will run later in the week, and he said, well, he was thinking the same thing, hearing this conversation, and then they realised we always used to do that. We used to play with Bud and with David Hale and Jared Ruffhead. So they always used to play 4.
Franklin can play as a small player. Yeah, he was a 6'6".
But so
small
can
forward in some ways, and so can Gunston. Yeah, so that's probably a difference. That it's not simply how tall they are. Like you can have Jamie Elliott's 5'10" or something, and he can stand on people's heads. So it's
he's not a crumbing small forward, is he, Jamie Elliott?
Well, he can crumb, but he's not.
That's not his sort of yeah.
So it depends on what people can do. But that game, and the other point about the game is it's a home game of the Giants, but there'll be as many Hawthorn supporters in the crowd.
Oh yeah, the last one. It's hard to avoid the sense that the Suns have the job's been done. They've played their final. They've got to the finals. They ticked off, and that'll be enough. And going over there, I think that's. I can't say. I get the sense that will be a bridge too far this season. I think they've established their trajectory. But what do you think?
I think some teams have their level. Like I think Fremantle's pass mark for the season is actually, whether they would admit it or not, is winning a final. I think the Gold Coast was making the finals. I think Geelong, it's a prelim final. You can go through every club, and I think that all points to a Fremantle win in this game. And I think Fremantle are a very solid team, and they don't have many injuries. Hayden Young's been their major concern. He's a gun player. He's not been quite fit enough to play a full game, but other than that, Sarong, Brayshaw, they're all there. Their forward line's intact.
Josh Tracy was tremendous last week.
Bolton.
He's massive for them. Changes
Bolton's
a
match winner. I think they should win this game, and that's what I expect.
Yeah, well, we will run through. So you're going to go Freo?
Freo. Yeah, Freo for me. I just think they're I actually think they're a chance. I wouldn't be shocked if they won a second final either. I really rate Freo.
Yeah. I'll go with Freo. Giants, Hawks?
Hawks for me.
I'm going to say the Giants, but I reserve the right to change that later in the week because I'm not. This is the game I've got conviction about every other game, but that game I don't.
Yeah, I'm leaning a bit similarly. I'm leaning towards the Giants. Up in Brisbane, Cats and Lions.
Brisbane.
I'm going to go Geelong.
Well, it's down here, by the way.
Sorry, my mistake. I toss up a coin, but I think I'll favour the Lions. And over in Adelaide,
I'll go the Crows, but not very confidently at all.
Crows for me as well.
I think I'll go the Pies, but also not very confidently. Well, we'll take a break there from talking finals, and we'll come back, talk more about the All-Australian and Mitch Brown.
We're online all the time. Just search Age Real Footy on Facebook or Twitter.
And the captain of the 2025 AFL All-Australian team is Jeremy Cameron from the Geelong Cats.
Have you captained a football team before?
Honestly, I've never captained anything, so I've had absolutely no practice at all. I sort of like just sitting back and listening in as much as I can and then just playing the game. So, yeah, it's all new to me.
Well, welcome back. The AFL Awards were held during the week. Of course, we're talking about team selections here, but team selections for that. There were some every year there's odd choices, and, for the team that plays no one, and it all is just this, honour.
It's an abstract.
It's an abstract thing.
Yep.
It was funny that Jeremy Cameron on the night of never captained anything, and they've made him captain of the All-Australian team.
Well, I guess they've done this before. They gave Buddy Franklin the captaincy. They gave
Tom Hawkins.
They gave Tom Hawkins the captaincy. They were captains. Dangerfield got it when he not captain when he got it, but he is someone who I wouldn't argue with. He's a absolute leader of the competition. Look, no, I don't agree with it. I mean, I think it's almost like they're doing this to cause a conversation, and we all know that happens in the media. We've done that.
It just seemed a bit odd when you had like Jordan Dawson sitting there. His team's risen to the top of the ladder as the leader. You've got Max Gawn, 8 All-Australians, and he's captain of the team. And you've got Marcus Bontempelli and Harris Andrews.
Not only that, the one everyone misses, because I think he's going to prove to be one of the best captains we've seen of recent times, and is already there, almost Noah Anderson, to lead that club to where they've got to in the headwinds that they've had. So, all of them, and they went for Jeremy, who dealt with it so well, though. I think that was one thing I liked about it, was that his interview was so disarming and non-mechanical, where you get...
That's what he's like, isn't it?
Yeah. And apparently the way he approaches footy is very relaxed.
Yeah. If I play devil's advocate on it, the only thing I'd say is they seem to have established a theme that captaincy is seen as almost a legacy selection. Like
lifetime,
they're not actually
lifetime
picking.
Oscar.
Yeah, it seems to be that there is a bit of a theme of that. And whether you agree with it or not, at least there is some consistency with that. That's all I'd say.
Yeah, I'd say that. What are you saying about leadership then? Like, and I strongly disagree with it in this sense, that one thing we've learned about teams is if you look at these players like Luke Hodge and Sam Mitchell and then Pendlebury and Jeremy Howe in successes of teams, those on-field coach-type leaders are... Now, Pendlebury wasn't even in the 23 grand final. He's not the captain, but he was like the on-field coach. It is very important. I think Jordan Dawson's been stiffed here because I think he's been outstanding.
The other funny one on the night was Sean Manor, even Chris Scott introducing him and said, 27-year-old youngest player.
He actually corrected him. He said I'm 28.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Like, honestly, how does that happen? We're laughing about it, but how does it happen?
It's not on age, it's on time in the game.
Very strange.
Yeah, that seems weird. I mean, the others that stood out, you wrote about.
We're getting into the mistakes, because I just want to say on the selectors, and I know a number of them, well, all of them, but is that most of it's right. So we're highlighting the mistakes, but 3/4 of the team I would agree with. But and everything that precedes the word "but" is bull dust, as they say.
Well, I mean,
Nick Dacos.
There's
on
very
the bench,
rarely a
that's
bad
a
All-Australian team picked. There's always players that you're going to argue over.
Yeah. Well, you can't have the fact that the guy won the MVP and he's on the bench.
My only thing is, I don't think this season was as good of a season for Nick Dacos as, say, his last two.
No, it wasn't as good as last.
But who do you kick out? Is it Ed Richards?
Yeah.
Richards goes to the bench.
See, Richards had some... he probably didn't finish the year quite as well, but I thought he was absolutely scintillating for a long stretch
I think
this
there's
season.
a little subtlety I want to have a go at. And I respect, the champion data guys enormously, but the Bulldogs are a high statting team with offense, and that has to be factored in.
Yep.
You can have all these guys who get all these stats, but they still didn't make the finals, and they were 2-9 against the top 8. Now, there's other teams that don't stat as high the way they play. And I think that you can't convince me that when your life's on the line, that Ed Richards is there yet relative to Jordan Dawson, let's say, who stats better in say, score involvements. Ed Richards is very high in score involvements, but he hasn't stood the test of time of having his jumper tugged like Nick Dacos, or Bontempelli, or being jumped on, or being blocked every time he plays. Like, that's not the world that he's lived in. He's had Libber and Bont ahead of him.
I feel like he's an impact player, though. Like, if we're talking about like stats and
he could be
padding
on the bench,
numbers,
but he could be on the bench.
He's an impactful player.
Yep.
That's all I'd say about if we're talking about stats padding. I don't see him as that type of a player. I think he hurts you.
But they
genuinely hurts.
They've had a lot of cricket scores. They've had a lot of flat track bully games.
Yeah, that's fair.
People run up the score.
That's fair.
And I don't think the stats. I think there's too much stat in the assessment of him. I believe my eyes. I don't think he's a game shaping player in the way that some others are, including Rankin, for instance.
The other one I had trouble with was that you decide that Jamie Elliott's a tall forward. He's 178 centimetres tall. He's 5 centimetres shorter than he's 5 centimetres shorter than Zach Bailey.
I think
He was picked as the small forward, and he kicked 20 goals fewer.
Yeah, I think he's paid the price. I think there's a tendency to factor the last part of the season more than the first part of a season when teams are picked. I think that you run out the season well, you get a better
50
you get a better. Yeah, he's very stiff. He's very stiff over his career. The other one I want to say is very stiff not to get it, and I've been banging on about this for years, is Nick Vlastuin.
Oh.
Because how is Nick Vlastuin? I mean, I don't want to be too, because there is a lot of, I think there's, people say there's Victorian bias. Well, there isn't in these teams.
So Josh Battle out? Is that what you're saying?
I would pick
who goes
Vlastuin.
out?
I would pick Vlastuin ahead of Battle.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree with that. We'll move on. The other big issue of the big issues of last week, we touched on it before with Isaac Rankin, but then Mitch Brown becoming the first former AFL player to come out as bisexual, or, certainly no one's come out as homosexual, but bisexual. The timing, whether it was coincidental or deliberate around the Rankin thing, but it was certainly poignant that it was in that period.
I think it was a direct response, wasn't it?
I don't know whether it was already in train that he was going to do that, or if it was just that. But I suspect it was.
I think it was
a reaction. Yeah. Okay. What did you make of it? I mean, we all
I
applaud
think
it.
Look, I heard someone talking on radio earlier who was a gay guy who'd been around footy. I can't remember who it was, but just saying, and I shared this view, a relief. I sort of, some people euphoric, but I felt like, well, gee, we've finally got this over. As a code, finally, this step has been taken. And it wasn't like it should be, because I've always felt for players, any player that would be in this position, that your life wouldn't be your own. I always thought that was the part of it. A hell of a lot gets said about how Mitch Brown talked about the fact that what he felt, and you can feel the burden that he had. He didn't feel comfortable, and he felt that the environment, and that's a while ago. He played when 2007 till 2016, was it?
About that, yeah.
So 10 years in the AFL, and look, it's disappointing that he felt a degree of discomfort in the locker room. I think that's really disappointing.
And some of the comments that he repeated, that players spoke about lions and being would rather be in a room with a lion and then a cage with a lion.
Hyper-masculinity, wasn't that the word he used?
Yeah. So I think but really, it's a positive story. It's a story that's and hopefully it's up to each individual how they deal with this life choice. And it shouldn't be a coercive situation. It should be completely because you're taking on the burden. I think any honest rendering of this whole topic has to include the role of the media and the role of social media and the fact that you may be forever defined. That you could lose. You run the risk of losing any other part of your life to that overpowering narrative. Now, that's a big step for Mitch Brown to take, but good on him, and I think it's...
Potentially, he may also be very comfortable with where his life is at, that I'm comfortable with what my where my status and what I've done in life and what I'm going to do in life, and I'm not troubled by that suggestion. The query will be whether it does precipitate others being more comfortable to come out afterwards, and that we can only guess at. I always had this idea that the first person to come out gay, there wouldn't be one, but there might be 4 or 5, having known each other and all come out en masse.
Yeah, my big thing here, I know what you said, Jake, about finally, we take this step. My only thing is that I think it's not going to be as significant until someone does it while they're actively playing, which is just such a huge burden to take on. And what I think the point you made, I think it was you as well, Jake, who made this point. I feel like when someone comes out and if they are the one who's actively playing, they become known for that one thing. And you talk about us playing a role in the media. Every time there's a story about this, we dial up their number. They're always the person we go to. And that's a big burden to carry as well.
It's a massive burden. Yeah. And because you could be burdened with bigotry, but you can also be burdened with being a standard bearer.
Yeah.
It's both. It's being bigotry, I understand, because you're never just an individual again. You've got this affixed to you.
You're the gay AFL footballer.
But yeah, that's
but
right.
you're doing that in
Ian
the
Roberts. I mean, someone said, why isn't there an Ian Roberts? Well, we can see why, because Ian Roberts is the go-to. The media ring him every time there's one of these stories.
Yes.
But having said that, one thing that does come out well in all this, so to speak, is that the AFL, I don't agree with how they've handled all the punishments for homophobic incidents. I don't think that the consistency is, they've been a bit erratic in assessing some of these things, but there has been a success in players calling out things. Maybe that's the wrong terminology. Calling out sounds a bit draconian, but with a clear shift in what's considered acceptable. Yeah. I think that that's been enormous, and that'll filter down to grassroots. What do you think, Mark?
Yeah, it's funny because I was going to touch on this earlier before we moved on, when we first touched on this about 10, 15 minutes ago. The only real gauge we have for what might happen in the Pies-Crows game, to be honest, is social media, which can often be just a horrible, horrible place. But I came across, I think it was about a week ago, and I love looking through Reddit. I think Reddit's a really interesting social media. And I was looking on there, and the topic came up, how are we going to react? What are people going to do? And it was funny that there were comment after comment referring to, if you hear someone saying something negatively, call them out. Go get security. And I was like, wow. This is actually really good progress. Like, we're seeing them even talking like this, because normally we see it as the sewer of society. And in this sense, if that's the tendency of what we're going to see, I think it's really good.
I really liked Matthew Nick's reaction to all the Rankin thing. He just said, he's not the victim here. Like, he was sort of, a lot of the conversation was around fighting and what they're going to do, and isn't this bad? And he said, hang on, he did the wrong thing. He said the wrong thing, and he's owning it and having to go. Miss games, but he's not the victim. I thought that was a really good comment to make.
And by the way, I'm not sure that it matters whether it's 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the ban is. I think there had to be some sort of statement.
We'll move on to the season after the season that's still happening in the finals, which is the movement of players. The one that's going to dominate a bit now is Jack Silvani. St Kilda entered the fray for him on Friday. Collingwood and Western Bulldogs both being informed that the Saints were in for him. I understand that number the Saints have offered more money than either the Bulldogs or Collingwood had offered, and an extra year. So 5 years by $8 to $8.50, as opposed to 4 at less than that.
Well, if I was framing a market here, St Kilda would be $1.25. And
I'd take those odds.
I think it might be $1.01, but I don't know. But they would be clearly. I'd be surprised. I would be surprised if he's not a St Kilda player, given that.
I agree, because I just think the thing that intrigued me the most when the Collingwood interest initially came out was the money wasn't actually any different than what Carlton were willing to offer, which was a real spit in the face to the Blues. I'm going to leave. It's not even going to be for more money. I just want to get out. Whereas now you think about the Saints, they want him, just like the Pies did, but they're going to actually pay for it as well. So if I'm him, I'm going there.
Well, the interesting thing out of that is that the Silvanis might actually be doing Carlton a favour with that if he's going to be going anyway, because now the compensation for free agency, losing him as a free agent might be, might edge toward, at those sorts of numbers, it edges towards end of first round. I don't think it gets to, unless it's $8.50 or more, up towards
he's
9.
28 at the end of the year.
With the way salary cap's gone up as well,
yeah,
I don't think it quite
I think
gets
it
there.
gets to about end.
Yeah.
I think it's end of first, though. It could get to.
It would get to end of first, and that really helps with the Dean bid and their own pick, which is now they're going to get for the deconning. They're going to get 2 comp picks. It's going to get them back in the draft. It's look. There's a lot of positives here for Carlton.
There's every chance the Dean bid though comes even before the compensation for.
I've heard it as high as 6 or 7.
I had him top 5 in my my latest rankings last month.
Is he ahead,
really
Mark,
highly
you know
rated.
the draft for the listeners. Is he ahead of any other? People said he's the best key defender.
There's just not a lot of key defenders in this year's pool, but beyond that, he's not sort of your 200 centimetre defender, but he is super mark. He's going to be a star number 2, I'd say. Or if
what is he, 193 or 4?
Basically, yes, around that mark, which used to be big. It's not anymore.
But it's funny,
he's a great player.
People grow. It was interesting to hear that Jobe Shanahan from the Eagles, who I think is showing a lot of signs of being a bit like Josh Tracy, could be a really good player. And he's 190, they said 195, and they say, he's not. And then since he's been at the Eagles, he's getting up towards 198. So he's 197, and his hands over his head are so good. So if you're really good, you never know. Guys can also grow a centimetre or two.
But also, you go back to Logan Morris, and they were offering because he was 191. Pretty handy overhead mark.
I've had this conversation with the recruiters where they laugh and they go, we talk about them not being big enough, and we're talking about like 2 centimetres sometimes.
Yeah.
it's
Curno's not that tall. Like you sort of look at it.
But the interesting thing with Dean could be that St Kilda actually dropped below Carlton in the draft order and could well be the first one to bid on Dean, and potentially, unless there's trades done beforehand, require Carlton to use the compensation pick.
Why would bid on Dean? Why would that happen?
Yeah, just can't. Well, when they've picked up, if they pick up Lee and Silvani and of Wilkie, so Jordan Ridley as well has been another that is like he's floated the idea. I don't think he was said as directly as I want out, but I think he made his frustrations pretty clear with how he's been handled over the last few years. And you look at their list of injuries, and you can't blame him at all for saying what is going on. He's had a lot, and it was framed that he wanted out, and he may well, and he may have walked away feeling that he'd made that clear to them. Essendon didn't feel it was as clear as that, and they're saying, well, you got a 4-year deal, you're going nowhere.
Which is absolutely fair enough.
Yeah.
Like these players, you can't have your cake and eat it too.
Well, and signed it last year, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And we're talking about 2029, and they sent him and Zach Reed overseas in the off-season. It's not like they're going, we won't worry about it. They're trying. They're trying to get better in this area. Yes, they clearly have to improve in that area because we know their injury list this year. But
it was an absolute destruction of a season, though, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. It was horrible.
It was as bad as I've seen in the AFL. Yeah. So, look, he's entitled. I think he's entitled to ask the question, and Essendon are entitled to say no.
That's fair too. Interestingly, same management company as Charlie Curnow, who's also said, I'd like to leave with a longer-term contract.
Yeah, but I think the more interesting point is where do they want to go?
Yeah.
And they want to go to Brisbane or want to go to Geelong or want to go to the Swans, like somewhere where they think their prospects of winning.
Well, Charlie hasn't said outright, it's just, I want out of here.
Well, Charlie didn't name a club, but it's clear that it's Sydney probably would be the logical one. Gold Coast, he would love, but Gold Coast don't seem to be, it's not on their map. And that was the first club that was raised. He'd take his surfboard there. And the other one, of course, is the Cats.
See, Brisbane has established itself not only just as a club that's successful every year at the moment, but they're also seen around the league now as having really good fitness staff, strength and conditioning, and they've actually got a lot of guys playing who couldn't play before. So that's probably part of the appeal for Jordan Ridley.
Jake, you dropped your top 30 on the weekend. What's been the reaction to it?
A former Brownlow medalist felt I was underrating Ed Richards. And that's someone I'm not going to name. But
we're back on this topic again, Ed Richards.
Yeah, but anyway, that was one that I got. The gap between Bont and Richards was raised, given that Bont came in at round 5, but I thought his year was fantastic from the games he played. The one that I actually felt difficult to assess was I put Dunkley in there, and that wasn't everyone's cup of tea, but I believe he is that good. I don't think defensive.
What number did you have him?
23 or 4. And I think Josh Dunkley has a big impact on games. I think that's some players don't. Some players get a lot of the ball and nothing really don't impact the game. He plays on people, which a lot of midfielders don't. So that was very deliberate. I think that some would say I had Jordan Dawson a bit high at 6. That's been said to me. And I think that there's always the Messiah faction. He was 14 and some people think he's in the top 5 AFL players. I don't. I think I'm a little bit more, you got to earn it a bit more. I know it's over a 2-year period. So that's my methodology, and not everyone will agree. But the other one I hesitated on, I seriously considered whether Isaac Heaney is number 1. In the end, I didn't. I think Isaac Heaney is an unbelievable player. It's just that bad grand final where he was injured, really.
I think he got number 1 bang on. Like Bont coming in, he was phenomenal. He barely played a bad game. He maybe in his first few, he was a little bit less than his optimum, but geez, he finished the year unbelievably.
Playing for your life too. If you had someone to play for your life.
Where'd you have Sam Darcy because I find him the hardest player to place.
I had him at, I think, 21.
Yeah.
And
21, yep.
Yeah, I think I found that difficult to... I
find
agree
him
with
really
that.
hard to
You
place.
guys tell me, where would you place him?
could-
I think he's really difficult to place.
Set the ranking aside and what his output is. If you were setting up a team and he'd be top 5, wouldn't he? In who you'd grab.
Yeah,
well, he would because of what he's going to do, but right now I'd have Phil.
That's what becomes difficult.
But on
right
form,
now, Phil Thorpe's playing
That's
better.
where it becomes tough.
Yeah. The form for this year. Yeah.
But it is... He could reinvent the game, couldn't he?
It's phenomenal. Him and Phil Thorpe are going to be...
We'll move on very quickly. Melbourne, in the meantime, don't still have a coach. They look to be expecting to finalise that by the end of the finals. The narrative around it seems to increasingly be that it's, if Nathan wants it, it's Buckley's. Do you get that sense?
Probably, but there's always a chance that someone presents. And just like Chris Scott, I remember people talking about Ken Hinkley at Geelong. I remember that. As soon as Chris Scott got in the presentation, I remember Ross Lyon, going right back, showing my age here. I remember when Ross Lyon got in against John Longmire and Guy McKenna.
Got in on the insistence of Robert Walls.
On the insistence of Robert Walls, who was on the panel. And I said to someone, well, this is all over. This will be Ross Lyon because I know what's going to happen in the presentation, knowing him a bit. He will hit them between the eyes. They'll walk out of the room thinking they don't know anything about the game. and that's even though John Longmire's proven to be an outstanding coach and had the premiership that Ross Lyon didn't get. But in this, unless something like that happens, it's I agree it's Buckley's to lose, and a bird in the hand, you'd be taking this over Tasmania because there's no guarantees on Tasmania. What do you think?
I think the question comes down to, are you picking someone other than Nathan Buckley when your fields is like guys like Stephen King, James Kelly, Brennan Lade, Hayden Skipworth? They'd have to present very, very well. I think Nathan would be seen as a fairly safe selection. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's the best selection, but I think he's a pretty safe one.
Having spoken to some people there in the last month or so, that one niggling thing they look at is how many of these guys have gone to a second club. The guys that have got experience, how many of them have replicated it and done well at the next club? At the moment you say, well, Hardwick's got them to their first finals appearance. That should be, that's impressive. He's taken them somewhere they haven't been before. We don't know where it's going to get to, and obviously later.
You raise this, Gleeson. I think this is a fascinating question. Do you think Christian Petrarca is an asset for Nathan Buckley to get this job? Because they will think he saw him up in the hub in 2020, and they were staying in the same place. And Petrarca was clearly interested in going to Collingwood at that point. And then they won the premiership the next year, and then it was all off. He signed a big deal. What do you think?
Yeah, I do. I think that Petrarca would be his Pendlebury. He'll be the guy that he can connect with, the same sort of peel your skin off your chicken type of preparation and diligence.
Well, he does more than that. He cooks.
He cooks it and
cooks it with
turns it into
and
a
puts it on
fricassee.
social media.
Yeah. I think it would not only get the best out of, or help to return Petrarca to the best sort of form. I think it would also calm Petrarca's restlessness to maybe try somewhere else. I think it'd be a really good move for that. And I wouldn't be surprised if Buckley did it, if they were to go down that path that he said, well, he'll meet with Oliver, and if they goes and says, well, no, we trade him, do it now, just cut your losses. If he doesn't think he can get him back on track, he might give him a season, but I think he'd go in wanting to make some change. But we're getting a bit of the cart before the horse there. Anyway, we'll take a break there. We'll come back with quick questions.
Get access to every episode as it drops. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
Ian Gorringe are going to front. Look at the run-up that Hughes has got. He's using all of the circle. Gorringe is standing there. Oh, no, he's been monstered. He's been monstered. On 50. And he pelted the ball at him. Hughes has been just demoralised tonight.
Welcome back, straight into quick questions. And things moved from being funny to a bit serious with the injury to Dave Hughes in the AFL Legends game. Will it kill off that concept, Jake?
No, it won't kill it off. What it might kill off, it might...
It only killed off a comedian.
Yeah, it won't kill it off, but I think people might be a little bit more careful about, that when you're putting blokes who are not conditioned athletes and who are not, it's where fun and celebrity meets someone, it just have to be a bit more care.
It felt a bit like, as someone else said, it was a bit like Brett Lee bowling to Piers Morgan. Like, it's sort of funny, but in the end, he's bowling pretty quickly. And some of these guys are, 2 or 3 sizes the time.
Like people have just played. People have just stopped playing. So poor old Dave. So anyway, hopefully he's okay.
Just dust off the AFLX format. That'll get it done, won't it?
X-rated footy. A question from Jim, one of our listeners. Does Essendon have the worst training facilities in the AFL? Gee, that's harsh, Jim.
No.
Not touching that.
Not even close.
Not even close.
They might have the worst injury list, but I don't think it's down to their facilities.
One line on this. We've already discussed Essendon and Ridley, but we've got a bit of an experiment going on now to see to what extent this was method and to what extent it might be individual players.
Okay. Moving on, which 2 teams make the AFL Grand Final?
I'm going to stick with Adelaide and Geelong. I was pretty bullish on the Cats in the pre-season. I've seen nothing to change that opinion. And I think if the Crows are up and about, they've got the 2 home finals potentially. I think that gives them the magic carpet ride.
Brisbane and Geelong.
Yeah, I think I'm going to stick with you, Jake, on that. I think
come back the other way. The loser come back and win.
And final one. There are lots of awards in the AFL at this time of year. Hadn't really noticed. What award do you think is missing? God, there couldn't be one, could there?
Most improved.
Most
improved. I wouldn't mind most improved. I think
it's not under 11s.
No, I know that, but I think it's one that does work quite well in other sporting competition. I think that's one that, if there is, that was the one that jumped to mind.
There's only one that I can think of. An official best defender.
Best defender.
Yeah. There's a Coleman medal for the most goals. There's the Brownlow and all the awards are midfielders medals. There's best defender.
How do you judge it then?
Yeah.
Is it
Coleman you do it on
least?
goals?
Is it just a
it's
subjective
just this year,
opinion?
you have a group of panel and the people who pick the All-Australian or whatever just say who's the best defender, and it's this year it's Paris Andrews or whoever, and it could be a smaller player as well.
Yeah, that'd be good. But I wouldn't have the All-Australian selectors picking it. I'd have a bunch of former defenders.
Well, they're called AFL coaches.
Yeah,
name it after Danny Frawley.
Yeah. That's good. I thought that is all we've got time for this week. Thanks to you both for joining us. Thanks for coming off the bench, Mark. We might have you back. Thanks also to Channel 7, Fox Footy, and the Daily Oz for the audio we've used in this episode. If you'd like to get in touch, you can do so via email, realfootypod@theage.com.au. Don't forget to subscribe, rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. The Expert Tips podcast will return on Thursday when Peter Ryan and Andrew Wu take you through all 4 finals games. We'll see you next Monday.